You need a home and we need a mom. Those 9 words spoken by 3 5-year-olds to a stranger shivering at a bus stop on Christmas Eve would shatter 2 broken lives and rebuild them into something neither thought possible. This is the story of a single father drowning in responsibility, a woman who lost everything, and 3 little boys who refused to let either of them face the world alone. What happens when desperation meets compassion? When rock bottom becomes the foundation for something beautiful? You're about to find out. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Dad, look, that lady is crying. Marcus Bennett's heart sank the moment he heard Owen's voice pierce the cold December air. He turned to see his 3 sons, Owen, Liam, and Noah, standing frozen on the sidewalk, staring at the bus stop bench. A woman sat there hunched over, her body shaking with sobs she was trying desperately to muffle. Her clothes were layered but worn. 2 black garbage bags sat at her feet like the saddest luggage in the world. Boys, come on. We shouldn't. But they were already moving. Marcus watched helpless as his 3 triplets ran toward the stranger and threw their arms around her legs. The woman's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face a portrait of shock and exhaustion. It's okay, Noah said with the innocent confidence only a child possesses. You don't have to be sad. We could be friends, Liam offered, his small hand patting the woman's knee. Owen looked up with those devastating brown eyes and said the words that would change everything. You could be our mom. We need one, and you need a home, right? The woman's face crumbled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time they looked different. Less like despair, more like disbelief. Marcus approached cautiously. I'm so sorry. They don't usually. No, she whispered, her voice raw. Don't apologize. This is the kindest thing anyone's done for me in months. She tried to smile through her tears, but her body betrayed her. Marcus saw the exact moment her eyes rolled back. He lunged forward, catching her just before she hit the pavement. Boys, stay close to me. Marcus adjusted his grip, feeling how light she was. Too light. How long had it been since she'd eaten? Owen tugged his jacket. Is she going to be okay? Marcus looked down at the unconscious woman in his arms, at her hollowed cheeks and chapped lips, at the way even unconsciousness couldn't erase the exhaustion from her face. I don't know, buddy, he said honestly. But we're going to help her find out. Carrying a stranger up 3 flights of stairs while 3 5-year-olds peppered you with questions was something Marcus had never imagined doing. But then again, the last 5 years had been full of things he'd never imagined. Like becoming a single father to triplets, like learning to tie tiny neckties from YouTube tutorials at 2 in the morning, like understanding that love and exhaustion could somehow occupy the exact same space in your chest. He laid the woman carefully on their worn couch and covered her with the green blanket his late wife Sarah had crocheted. The boys clustered around her like protective angels. What's her name? Liam asked. I don't know yet. Why doesn't she have a home? Noah pressed. I don't know that either, buddy. Can she stay with us? Owen's question was so full of hope it physically hurt. Marcus looked at the stranger on his couch, really looked. Beneath the grime and grief, she seemed young, maybe late 20s. Her long auburn hair, though tangled, had been recently washed. Her nails were broken, but clean. She had been trying to maintain dignity in circumstances designed to strip it away. Something in Marcus's chest tightened. He recognized that look, that desperate attempt to hold yourself together when everything around you was falling apart. He'd worn that same look for the first year after Sarah died. Just for tonight, Marcus said, making a decision that felt both reckless and inevitable. She needs rest. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Tomorrow's Christmas, announced Owen. Then I guess we're having a guest for Christmas, Marcus said softly. The apartment was quiet. The boys had finally fallen asleep after an hour of whispered conspiracy about their new friend. Marcus sat in the kitchen nursing cold coffee and watching the woman sleep. He should call someone. Social services, maybe a shelter something. But the shelters were full. He knew that much from the news. And something about the way his sons had gravitated toward this stranger made him hesitate. They had been asking about having a mother for months now. Not constantly, but enough that Marcus felt the weight of what he couldn't give them. Owen had cried last week when he couldn't figure out how to tie his shoes properly for school picture day. Liam had stopped inviting friends over because he was embarrassed that their apartment was always messy. Noah had started drawing pictures of families with a mom and dad, always making sure Marcus saw them. They were good kids, great kids. But they were grieving something they'd never even had. Marcus's eyes burned. He rubbed them roughly, willing himself not to break down. Not tonight. Not when someone else's crisis demanded his attention. The woman stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Then clarity hit, followed immediately by panic. She sat up too quickly, swaying. Where am I? You're safe? Marcus said immediately, staying seated so he wouldn't seem threatening. Your sons, she said slowly, memory returning. They ambushed you with kindness. Yeah, they do that. Marcus offered a small smile. I'm sorry. They shouldn't have overwhelmed you. Please don't apologize. Her voice cracked. They saw me. Really saw me? Do you know how rare that is? Marcus didn't know what to say to that. She wrapped her arms around herself. I should go. I've already imposed. It's 2 a.m. and it's snowing. Marcus stood slowly, moving to the kitchen. At least let me make you something to eat before you decide anything. He didn't wait for permission. He pulled out eggs, bread, butter. His hands moved on autopilot, the same routine he perfected for midnight comfort meals when the boys had nightmares. The woman watched him with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Suspicion maybe, or disbelief that kindness without strings could exist. I'm Catherine, she said finally. Catherine Porter. Nice to meet you, Catherine. Marcus cracked eggs into a pan. When's the last time you ate? 2 days, maybe 3. I lose track. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice neutral. Well, we're fixing that right now. He made scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing fancy, but he watched Catherine devour it like it was a 5-star meal. She ate slowly, deliberately, like someone who'd learned that eating too fast after prolonged hunger made you sick. When she finished, tears were streaming silently down her face again. Thank you, she whispered. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did. Look, I don't know your story, and you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But it's Christmas Eve, and you just passed out from exhaustion and hunger, and my sons are currently having dreams about being heroes. So how about this? You stay the night. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. No pressure, no strings. Catherine studied him for a long moment. Why would you do that for a stranger? He thought about that, about Sarah, who'd never met a person she couldn't love, about the community that had surrounded him after she died, bringing casseroles and babysitting offers, about how grief had taught him that kindness was the only thing that made the world bearable. Because someone would have done it for me, he said simply, and because those 3 boys in there have better instincts than most adults I know. Catherine's laugh was small, but real. They're special. They really are. Marcus stood, grabbing a pillow and extra blanket from the hallway closet. Bathroom's down the hall. There's a toothbrush under the sink, never opened. Help yourself to anything you need. And Catherine, she looked up. You're safe here. I promise. For the first time since she'd arrived, Catherine's shoulders dropped from around her ears. Okay, she breathed. Okay. Marcus woke to the smell of smoke. He bolted upright, his father instincts screaming danger. He sprinted to the kitchen and stopped dead. The triplets had apparently decided that their guest needed breakfast. The scene was catastrophic. Flour coated every visible surface, counters, floor, somehow the ceiling. An entire box of cereal formed a crunchy carpet. Owen stood on a chair, reaching for the smoking pan on the stove. What are you doing? Marcus yelped, yanking Owen away from the heat. Making waffles for the sad lady, Liam announced. So she'd feel better, Noah added, his bottom lip already trembling at his father's tone. Marcus turned off the burner. The waffles were charcoal discs. He surveyed the wreckage and felt his frustration rising. Then he saw their faces. 3 pairs of eyes looking up at him with such pure, desperate hope. "Please, Dad, we wanted to surprise her, but we messed it up. Can you help us?" Liam asked. "Please." Marcus looked at the disaster, then at his sons staring at him with their usual puppy eyes, wide, pleading, impossible to resist. The kitchen was destroyed. This was objectively a terrible idea. But those eyes were his weakness, his absolute downfall. He'd never figured out how to say no to them. "Okay," he heard himself say. "But we do this properly and quickly." The boys erupted in excited squeals, immediately clustering around him as he pulled out fresh ingredients. Marcus worked fast, mixing batter, heating the griddle properly, guiding small hands as they helped pour and flip. 20 minutes later, they had a plate of actual edible waffles, along with scrambled eggs and toast. The triplets arranged everything carefully on a tray, adding a glass of orange juice and a paper napkin folded into a lopsided triangle. "Can we take it to her?" Owen asked. Marcus hesitated. The woman, Catherine, was still a stranger, but his sons' faces were so full of hope and goodness that he couldn't bear to crush it. "Go ahead, but knock first, and if she's sleeping, come right back out." The triplets moved as one unit, carrying the tray with the careful concentration of people transporting something precious. Marcus followed quietly, staying back, but close enough to intervene if needed. They knocked softly on the living room doorframe. "Miss Catherine," Noah called out, "are you awake?" There was movement from the couch. Catherine sat up slowly, disoriented, her hair tangled and her eyes still heavy with sleep. When she saw the 3 boys standing there with a breakfast tray, her expression shifted through confusion, then recognition, then something that looked almost like pain. "We made you breakfast," Liam announced proudly. "Well, Dad helped because we burned the first ones. But we wanted to do something nice for you," Noah added quickly. The boys approached carefully and set the tray on the coffee table in front of Catherine. She stared at it at the slightly uneven waffles, the scrambled eggs still steaming, the crooked napkin triangle like she'd never seen food before. From the doorway, Marcus watched her face. Watched the exact moment her careful composure shattered. Catherine's hand came up to cover her mouth, her eyes filled with tears that spilled over before she could stop them. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to." "Are you sad?" asked Owen, immediately concerned. "We didn't want to make you sad." "No, sweetie, no." Catherine shook her head, wiping frantically at her tears. "These are happy tears, I promise. This is the kindest thing anyone's done for me in so long." She reached out hesitantly, and the boys immediately moved into her arms. Catherine hugged them tightly, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs she was trying desperately to control. Marcus felt his own throat tighten. He understood exactly what was happening. This woman, this stranger who'd lost everything, was being offered something she'd stopped believing existed. Simple, uncomplicated kindness. After a moment, Catherine pulled back, wiping her face and trying to compose herself. She looked at the breakfast tray again. "This looks amazing," she said, her voice still thick with emotion. "Will you stay and eat with me? I don't think I can finish all this by myself." The boys looked back at Marcus for permission. He nodded and they climbed onto the couch beside Catherine, chattering away as she picked up a fork with trembling hands. Marcus quietly retreated to the kitchen to start cleaning the flour explosion, but he kept glancing back. Catherine ate slowly, listening as the boys told her about their school, their friends, their favorite superheroes. She asked questions, smiled at their jokes, and with every moment Marcus saw her shoulders drop a little more from around her ears. She was beginning to feel safe, and Marcus realized with sudden, uncomfortable clarity that he was going to have a very hard time letting this stranger leave. Breakfast became a moment frozen in time. After they'd eaten, The boys dragged Catherine to their bedroom to show her their toys, their drawings, their entire world compressed into one small shared room. Marcus cleaned the kitchen, listening to their laughter echo down the hallway. It was Christmas morning. He realized he'd almost forgotten in the chaos. When the boys finally released Catherine from their enthusiastic tour, Marcus found them all in the living room. Owen was showing Catherine the small artificial tree they decorated together, pointing out each ornament and explaining its significance. "This one's from when we were babies," Owen said, holding up a silver rattle. "Dad says Mom picked it out before we were born." Catherine's expression softened. "It's beautiful." "Do you have a mom?" Noah asked with the blunt curiosity of a 5-year-old. "Noah?" Marcus warned gently. "It's okay," Catherine smiled sadly. "I did. She left when I was very little. I don't really remember her." "That's sad," Liam said matter-of-factly. "But you can share our dad if you want. He's really good at being a parent." Marcus felt his face heat. "Boys." "Dad," Owen interrupted, suddenly bouncing with excitement. "It's snowing. Can we go outside, please?" Marcus looked out the window. Fat snowflakes were falling steadily, blanketing the world in white. The boys pressed their faces against the glass, their breath fogging up the panes. "Please, Dad," they chorused. He glanced at Catherine, who was watching the snow with an expression he couldn't quite read. Longing maybe, or remembering something bittersweet. "What do you say?" Marcus asked her. "Want to help 3 crazy kids build a snowman?" Catherine blinked, surprised to be included. "I don't have proper clothes for." "We'll figure it out," Marcus said. "Come on, it's Christmas." 20 minutes later, they were all bundled up. Marcus had found an old jacket of Sarah's for Catherine. It was slightly too small, but it would work. The boys wore their mismatched snow gear, each one a different color, looking like a parade of tiny winter warriors. The apartment complex's courtyard was already filled with families. Kids shrieked and threw snowballs. Parents sipped coffee and watched from the sidelines. Christmas music drifted from someone's open window. "Okay, Operation Snowman is officially underway." The boys immediately started gathering snow with more enthusiasm than technique. Catherine stood awkwardly to the side at first, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to participate. "You're not getting out of this," Marcus said, grinning. "Everyone builds." Something shifted in Catherine's face. She bent down and scooped up snow, her movements tentative at first, then more confident. Soon she was laughing as Noah dumped an entire armful of snow on her boots. They built the most lopsided snowman Marcus had ever seen. Its head tilted dangerously to one side. The stick arms were different lengths, but the boys were so proud they practically glowed. "He needs a face," Owen declared. They scrounged for rocks and found a carrot in Marcus's jacket pocket left over from yesterday's lunch packing. The snowman ended up with a crooked smile and mismatched eyes, but it was perfect in its imperfection. "What should we name him?" Liam asked. "Frosty," Noah shouted. "That's boring," Owen argued. "How about Captain Snowbeard?" Marcus snorted. "Captain Snowbeard it is." Catherine laughed, really laughed. And the sound was so genuine and free that Marcus found himself staring. This was what joy looked like on her. He wanted to see it again and again. The boys started a snowball fight that quickly devolved into chaos. Marcus got pelted from 3 directions at once. Catherine tried to stay neutral until Liam declared her on Teen Boys against Dad. Betrayal. Marcus yelled dramatically, falling into a snowbank. The boys piled on top of him, giggling uncontrollably. Catherine stood over them, smiling, and for just a moment, they looked like what they weren't yet, but might become a family. By early afternoon, they were back inside, cold and exhausted. Marcus made hot chocolate while the boys changed into dry clothes. Catherine sat at the kitchen table, her cheeks still flushed from the cold, her hair damp and curling. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For including me." "For," she paused, searching for words. "For making me feel human again." Marcus set a mug in front of her. "You are human." You always were. It doesn't feel that way when you're invisible." They were quiet for a moment, listening to the boys argue about which movie to watch. "Can I ask what happened?" Marcus said carefully. "You don't have to tell me, but if you want to." Catherine wrapped her hands around the mug, staring into the steam. For a long moment, Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. Then she began. "My father was Jonathan Porter." Marcus's eyes widened. Even he knew that name. Real estate magnate, philanthropist. His face had been on magazine covers. He was also married. Catherine continued, her voice steady but distant, to a woman who wasn't my mother. My mother was the housekeeper. Their affair was brief. When she got pregnant, he paid her to disappear. I was 2 years old when she left. I don't remember her at all." Marcus stayed quiet, letting her speak. "My father couldn't acknowledge me publicly. It would have destroyed his reputation, his marriage, his empire. So he kept me hidden. Separate houses, private tutors, birthdays celebrated in places where nobody would recognize him." Her voice cracked slightly. "He'd call me his sunshine, his only honest thing in a dishonest life, but only when we were alone, never where it mattered." She took a shaky breath. "I thought that was love. I thought being a secret meant being special. I didn't realize until much later that I was just convenient, a guilt project he could fund from a distance." "Catherine, let me finish, please." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "He had a heart attack in September. Massive. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. I found out from the news." Marcus's chest tightened. The funeral was this massive spectacle. Hundreds of people, politicians, business associates. His widow gave this beautiful eulogy about her devoted husband. Catherine's laugh was bitter. I watched from across the street, hidden like always. Within 2 weeks, Margaret, his widow, froze all my accounts, challenged the will, hired lawyers who cost more than most people make in a year, and I had nothing to fight back with. No documentation proving he was my father. My birth certificate only lists my mother's name. There were no adoption papers, no legal acknowledgement. He'd been too careful. Her hands trembled around the mug. "The penthouse I lived in, not in my name. The money, all through a trust, she was able to contest. My lawyer said I had no legal standing. That without proof of paternity, I was nobody to Jonathan Porter. And I couldn't prove it because he'd spent my entire life hiding me." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away angrily. "I had a boyfriend, Jason. He said we'd figure it out together. For 2 months, I believed him. I cooked and cleaned and tried to be useful while he paid for everything. Then one night, I saw a text on his phone. He was telling his friend he only stayed with me for the perks and the provisions, that now I was just depressing." Marcus felt rage build in his chest. "Catherine, I left that night. 2 garbage bags of clothes and nowhere to go. The shelters were full. They're always full during the holidays. Everyone wants to help, but there aren't enough beds." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I've been on the streets for almost a month. Washing dishes when I could, cleaning offices at night, trying to stay invisible so I'd be safe, trying to remember what it felt like to be human." She finally looked at Marcus, and the raw pain in her eyes nearly broke him. "Yesterday was the worst day. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I had nowhere to sleep, and I gave up. I sat at that bus stop and cried because I couldn't think of a single reason to keep going." Her voice cracked. "And then your sons appeared. 3 perfect strangers who looked at me and saw someone worth saving." The silence that followed was heavy with shared pain. Marcus moved his chair closer. "I'm sorry for all of it. You deserved so much better. Did I? Because some days I think maybe I deserved exactly what I got. Maybe." "Stop." Marcus's voice was firm, but gentle. "None of that was your fault. Not your father's choices, not your stepmother's cruelty, not your boyfriend's cowardice. You were failed by every person who should have protected you." Catherine's face crumpled. She pressed her hands over her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. "But my sons didn't fail you," Marcus continued softly. They saw you, really saw you. And they were right. You're worth saving, Catherine. You always were. She broke then, really broke. Tears came in waves. Grief and relief and exhaustion all pouring out at once. Marcus didn't try to stop her. He just moved closer, offering his presence as an anchor. When she finally calmed, her voice was hoarse. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because I know what it's like to drown," Marcus said simply. He told her then about Sarah, about the pregnancy complications they tried not to worry about. The day that should have been the happiest of his life turning into the worst. Amniotic fluid embolism, the medical term still foreign on his tongue even after 5 years. The doctor said it was rare, unpredictable, nothing anyone could have done, but that didn't make her any less gone. Catherine listened, her eyes never leaving his face. "They handed me 3 babies, and I'd never felt more terrified in my life. I didn't know how to change a diaper. Didn't know why they were crying or how to make them stop. I was grieving and exhausted and completely lost." He swallowed hard. "My brother moved in for the first 6 months. Friends brought meals. The community showed up in ways I'll never be able to repay. But eventually, everyone went back to their lives, and it was just me and 3 babies who needed everything I didn't know how to give." "But you figured it out," Catherine said softly. "Barely. Most days I'm still figuring it out." Marcus looked toward the living room where his sons were now singing along to a movie. "They ask about having a mother sometimes, not cry, just factually like they're missing a piece of the puzzle. And I can't give them that. I can't be both parents no matter how hard I try. You're an amazing father, Marcus. I'm a tired father who burns dinner and forgets library books and can't tie ties properly to save his life." He turned back to her. "But I keep showing up because that's all we can do, right? Keep showing up even when we're drowning." They sat in shared understanding, 2 people who'd been broken by loss and were still trying to figure out how to be whole. "Stay," Marcus said suddenly. The word came out before he'd fully thought it through, but he didn't take it back. "Not just tonight. Stay until you figure out your next steps. Help with the boys if you want. Let us help you. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Catherine stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "Marcus, that's insane. You don't know me, so I'll get to know you and you'll get to know us." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, maybe this is crazy. Maybe it's the worst idea I've ever had. But my sons ran toward you when every adult in your life ran away. I trust their instincts. What if I mess this up? What if then you'll mess it up and we'll figure it out together." Marcus's voice was firm. "You're not a project, Catherine. You're not charity. This is me offering partnership. Help with the boys, with the apartment, with whatever feels right. And in return, you get time and space to rebuild." Catherine's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because someone did it for me when Sarah died. Because kindness is the only thing that makes this world bearable. Because they paused, searching for truth. Because my son saw something in you worth fighting for, and I believed them." Catherine sat with that, really sat with it. Marcus could see the war happening behind her eyes. The part that wanted to believe fighting the part that had learned not to trust. Finally she whispered, "Okay, I'll stay. But only until I can stand on my own and I contribute. I'm not taking charity." "Partnership," Marcus corrected. "Partnership," Catherine agreed, her voice stronger now. They shook hands across the table. And in that moment, neither of them realized they just made a decision that would change both their lives forever. From the living room came a delighted shout, "Dad, Miss Catherine, come watch with us." Marcus stood, offering his hand to help Catherine up. She took it, and they walked together toward the living room where 3 little boys were making space on the couch. "You have to sit in the middle," Owen announced to Catherine, "so you can be part of the family hug," Liam explained. "It's tradition," Noah added seriously. Catherine looked at Marcus, uncertainty written across her face. He nodded encouragement. She sat down and immediately the boys curled around her like puppies seeking warmth. Marcus took the end spot and they watched the movie together as snow continued to fall outside. It was the strangest Christmas Marcus had ever had. It was also somehow one of the best. The next few months were an adjustment. Catherine threw herself into helping with an intensity that bordered on desperation. She cleaned obsessively, cooked elaborate meals, did laundry before Marcus even noticed the hamper was full. She was trying to earn her place, to prove her value, to make herself indispensable. Marcus recognized the behavior. He'd done the same thing after Sarah died, worked himself to exhaustion so he wouldn't have time to feel. "You don't have to do all this," he said one evening, finding her scrubbing the kitchen at 10 o'clock. "I want to help. I know, but you're allowed to just exist here without earning it." Catherine's hand stilled. "I don't know how to do that." "Then learn with us," Marcus said gently. The boys made it easier. They demanded Catherine's attention in ways that didn't feel transactional. They wanted her to read stories, play superheroes, judge their competitions for who could jump the farthest. Marcus watched Catherine slowly unfold, saw the tight anxiety in her shoulders gradually release, heard her laugh more freely, noticed the exact moment she stopped asking permission before making herself tea. She was settling in, becoming part of their rhythm, and Marcus was falling in love. It happened in small, devastating moments. The way Catherine hummed while folding laundry, completely unaware she was being watched. How she'd leave sticky notes with terrible jokes on his bathroom mirror. The morning he found her sleeping on the floor of the boys' room because she had fallen asleep mid-story. The way she looked at his sons, not with pity or obligation, but with genuine affection. The way she looked at him sometimes when she thought he wasn't paying attention. But Marcus was terrified. What if he was reading this wrong? What if she just saw him as a friend, a safe harbor before moving on to her real life? What if confessing his feelings would scare her away and break his sons' hearts? So he stayed quiet, swallowed his feelings, told himself friendship was enough. It wasn't. The breakthrough came on a random Tuesday. Marcus came home from work to find Catherine sitting at the kitchen table staring at a newspaper circled with red pen marks. Job listings. "Hey," he said carefully. "Find anything good?" "No," her voice was flat. "Nobody wants to hire someone with a 3-month gap in employment and no references. Turns out my father's colleagues don't want to vouch for the secret daughter." Marcus sat across from her. "You'll find something, will I? Because I'm starting to think I'm unemployable, that I'm going to be dependent on your generosity forever." She laughed bitterly. "Some partnership." "Hey." Marcus waited until she looked at him. "You're not a burden. You're family. I'm a charity case who's overstayed her welcome." "That's not true, isn't it?" Catherine's voice rose. "Be honest, Marcus. How long can this really work? Eventually, the boys will start school full-time, and you won't need help. Eventually, you'll want your space back. Eventually, I'm going to have to tell you, I'm in love with you and risk ruining everything." The words escaped before Marcus could stop them. Catherine froze. What? Marcus's heart hammered. He'd said it. No taking it back now. "I'm in love with you," he repeated, his voice steadier this time. "I have been for months, maybe longer. I know that timing is terrible, and I know you've got enough on your plate without me adding this complication. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel it. You're not temporary, Catherine. At least I don't want you to be." Catherine stared at him, her expression unreadable. Marcus braced for rejection for her to say this was too much, too fast, too complicated. Instead, she started crying. "I love you too," she choked out. "I've been terrified to admit it because I thought you were just being kind. I thought this was pity." I thought Marcus was around the table before she could finish. He cupped her face gently, wiping tears with his thumbs. "This isn't pity. It's love, messy, complicated, probably bad timing love. But it's real." "Are you sure? Because I come with nothing, Marcus. No money, no prospects. No, you come with you. That's everything." When he kissed her, it felt like every broken piece sliding into place. Like finding something you didn't know you'd been searching for. From the hallway came a delighted shriek. Dad's kissing Catherine. They broke apart to find 3 pajama-clad triplets jumping up and down with pure unfiltered joy. Does this mean Catherine's our mom now? Owen asked hopefully. Marcus looked at Catherine, who looked back at him, both of them laughing through tears. Yeah, Catherine said, pulling the boys into a hug. Yeah, I think it does. The next 6 months were the happiest of Marcus's life. Catherine found work at a local cafe. Modest hours, modest pay, but it gave her independence and purpose. She started smiling more, laughing freely. The haunted look in her eyes faded, replaced with something that looked like hope. The boys thrived. Their teachers commented on how settled they seemed. Owen's anxiety improved. Liam's grades jumped. Noah stopped having nightmares, and Marcus felt like he could breathe for the first time in 5 years. They moved carefully, deliberately. Catherine still slept on the couch. They didn't rush physical intimacy beyond kissing. They were building a foundation, not a fantasy. But Marcus knew he wanted forever. He just didn't know how much forever was about to change. The knock came on a quiet afternoon in October. Catherine was home alone folding laundry when the doorbell rang. She opened it to find a distinguished older man in expensive suit holding a leather briefcase. "Are you Catherine Porter?" Her blood went cold. "Yes, my name is Stephen Mitchell. I was your father's attorney. May I come in?" Catherine's hands trembled as she let him in. Stephen sat at their small dining table with the efficiency of someone who delivered life-changing news before. "Your father knew exactly what would happen when he died," Stephen began. "He'd been preparing for years. The trust your stepmother seized was a decoy. The real estate," he slid papers across the table. "This is what he actually left you." Catherine couldn't process the numbers. Too many zeros. It had to be a mistake. $2 billion, Stephen said quietly. Properties, investments, liquid assets, offshore accounts hidden from probate. All legally yours. Your stepmother can't touch any of it. The room spun. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Your father's instructions were explicit. Wait 1 full year." His words were, "Let her discover her worth without wealth. Let her build a real life, then give her the tools to protect it." Stephen handed her an envelope. "He also left you this." Catherine opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest sunshine, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you've survived what I feared most. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you openly. I was a coward. But I need you to know everything I did was to ensure you'd be truly free, not dependent on money or my name. I wanted you to find your strength first. By now, you know what real love looks like. You've learned who you are without wealth. That knowledge is worth more than any inheritance. But I'm leaving it anyway. Build the life you deserve. Help people who need it. Be the light I always knew you were. You were never my shame. You were always my pride. All my love, Dad." Catherine sobbed. Grief and relief crashed over her in waves. Her father had seen her, truly seen her. Even in death, he was protecting her. When Marcus came home hours later, he found her surrounded by papers, eyes red, but radiant. "What happened?" he asked. "Everything changed," Catherine whispered. "Everything changed. $2 billion. Marcus repeated the 3rd time, still not comprehending. They sat on the couch, papers spread across the coffee table. Catherine had explained everything. The hidden estate, her father's plan, the attorney's revelation. "Yes, you're a billionaire, apparently." They stared at each other, then inexplicably started laughing. Deep, slightly hysterical laughter that released months of tension. "I don't want this to change us," Catherine said when they'd calmed. "I don't want to lose this." Marcus took her hands. "It doesn't change who you are, but Catherine, it changes what's possible." Over the next weeks, they made plans. Catherine established a foundation for homeless individuals, funding shelters, job training, legal aid. She created scholarships for foster children, made anonymous donations to families drowning in medical debt. People helped me when I had nothing. I want to be that for others. For themselves, they were modest. A larger house with space for everyone. Security and comfort, not excess. College funds for the boys. I spent my childhood with everything and feeling empty. I want them to have enough and know they have everything. 12 months later, Marcus proposed. He did it at home with the triplets as co-conspirators. They'd spent the morning making decorations, handmade "Will you marry our dad" signs in crayon, covering every surface when Catherine walked in from grocery shopping. Marcus was kneeling in their living room, the boys standing beside him like the world's cutest backup singers. "We're already a family," Marcus said, his voice thick. "But I want to make it official. Will you marry me?" Catherine didn't hesitate. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The wedding was small and perfect. Close friends, Marcus's brother Daniel, and 3 ring bearers who took their jobs very seriously. Catherine wore a simple dress. Marcus cried during his vows. The boys presented Catherine with a handmade card, the best mom ever. Judge Cooper, who had prepared Marcus's taxes for years, officiated with appropriate humor. "I now pronounce you husband and wife and officially declare this the world's luckiest family." 3 years later, Marcus stood in the audience of Riverside Elementary's spring concert, watching his sons perform. At 8 years old, Owen, Liam, and Noah were confident, radiant boys who'd never known anything but love. They sang a song they'd written themselves about family, about home, about how the best things arrive when you least expect them. Catherine squeezed his hand, tears streaming. "They're incredible. They learn from the best," Marcus whispered. After the performance, they drove to the cemetery together. The boys placed flowers on Sarah's grave while Marcus and Catherine stood back. "We talk about her every month," Catherine said softly. "Her favorite things, her dreams for them, how much she loved them." "Thank you," Marcus managed. "For never making them choose, for honoring her. She gave me this family," Catherine said simply. "I'll never let them forget that." That night, Marcus and Catherine sat on their back porch under emerging stars. "Do you ever think about that night? How close we came to never meeting?" "Every day," Catherine admitted. "I'd given up. I was at the absolute end. What changed?" 3 little boys who refused to let a stranger suffer. Who offered love instead of judgment. She smiled. "They saved me, Marcus. Before I ever did anything for them, they saved me." Marcus pulled her close. "You saved us right back." "We saved each other," Catherine corrected. "That's what family does." Inside, one of the boys called out. Probably a nightmare or water request. Catherine stood, but Marcus caught her hand. "I love you." "In case you forgot, since 20 minutes ago," Catherine laughed warm and free. "I love you too, now come on." Parenting calls. They walked inside together toward their beautiful chaos. Toward the children they loved beyond measure. Toward a future built on the unlikeliest foundation. 3 little hearts who'd known exactly what they needed, and 2 broken people brave enough to believe they deserved to be whole. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Let it remind you that kindness still changes lives, that hope is never wasted, that sometimes the family we need finds us when we've stopped looking. Subscribe to Soul Lift Stories, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moved you, share it, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.